you. A very good morning from here in Sharjah to all of you, and a very good evening to one and all. And it's really a happy opportunity to get back to you and going ahead with the second levels of Aura and Chakra healing, where many of us had already attended the first levels of Aura and Chakra healing, and a few of them have joined fresh here for the second session. So for the benefit of them, and also to brush back to whatever we learned in the first session, and to get back to the session here today. So we go for a recap of what had been done in the first levels for the benefit of everyone once again.
Sure. One question I have before we, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Should I ask everyone to be on mute, or how do you prefer it? Should everybody be on mute?
I think it's up to you. It's not necessary. It can be either way. I am okay with it.
Okay. If I think the preference is maybe everybody can go on mute, that will be great. And that way, if there are, so we have distractions to the minimum. And then, obviously, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we will address it. Thank you again. With that, I'm going to turn on the PowerPoint slide.
Oh, can I go ahead?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Okay. So here, going to the recap of what we did in the first sessions, we have the first slide here, where you can see basically the chakras, all the 7 chakras being depicted in this slide, where we have, first of all, from the Kundalini, the root chakra, the basic chakra, which is the Mooladhara chakra, which is for the physical needs, rather the physical needs and desires. And then we have the Swadhisthana chakra rising above the Mooladhara chakra, the next chakra, which is the creative force in us, which is known as the sacral chakra. And then we have the solar plexus, which is the Manipura chakra in the stomach region of our body, which is the power center, the solar plexus. As you can see the name rightly, that is the solar energy, the solar plexus, the digestive forces in us, the stomach area. Then we rise up to the heart chakra, which is the Anahatabja, where it gives you all the feelings, the love, the desires, the affections, the emotions, and other details in a human body. Then we rise above that to the next chakra, the next level, where we have the throat chakra, which is the strongest one for communication, which is the greatest skill, which is required always for a human being, or any being for that matter, where we have the Vishuddhi chakra. We call it the Vishuddhi chakra, or the throat chakra. Then we come to the next level of rise, where we have the Agnya chakra. Agnya chakra in between the eyebrows and the third eye, which is also known as the third eye chakra, Agnya chakra, which gives you all the sixth sense and the gut feeling, the premonitions and the telepathy and all those things for a human being. Then we have the topmost chakra in our body, the Sahasrara, from the Kundalini to the Sahasrara, which is known as in the Sanskrit as Sahasrara, which is the crown chakra in English, which is the seat of your spiritual connections to the universe. And then we have the topmost central point in our mid of the brain, in between the small space between the cranium and the skull, which is the Brahmarandra chakra, which is the soul star there depicted here. You can see the yogic position, the meditative position, where this slide depicts very clearly all these chakras in an order. Just to give a recap of all these chakras which we learned in the first levels. So these were the names of the chakras. Of course, the first level chakra healing classes, I have put it in the YouTube channel also for the benefit of people who have not yet attended it, so that after this recap and after this session, they can go through it in detail, and where everything, the entire recording is given, where you can go through and get the benefit fully of the first sessions of this class, though we are going for the recap here, so that you get a detailed version of it. and it will be easy for you to take it through the second level. Now coming to the second slide here, where we have each of the, we had discussed in the first levels regarding the each of the deities which are invoked with each one of these chakras in our body. Here we have the, if anyone of you who can read it out, I think it will be easier for others to also and assimilate this, and also for me to explain. Can anyone read out this slide?
I can read out.
Yes, go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead.
Root, Mooladhara Chakra, Ganapati, Om Gan Ganapataye Namaha. Odd number
Yes.
of times to repeat.
So this is the chakra, the Mooladhara chakra, where the deity Ganpati is invoked, as you see rightly in the slide, and where the Moola mantra for the recitation, for the Moola mantra to invoke is Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, the first Ga, Gam Ganapataye. The words, the sound waves are very important. So Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, odd number of times to repeat. Yes, that's right. Where the Mooladhara chakra, the root chakra, the seat of all the emotions, the seat of all the desires in a human body, the seat of all the strength that is behind the Mooladhara chakra, the nerve plexus, which is near the lowermost tailbone in your body, behind in the vertebra, is the Mooladhara chakra. Now read ahead.
Sacral, Swadhisthana Chakra, Brahma, Om Paramahamsaya Namaha. 3 times.
Yes. Swadhisthana chakra, as the word in Sanskrit and Hindi goes, Swadhisthana, Swad means the taste. Swadhisthana, Ishta means the liking, the taste and liking, that is the liking and taste, the desires, the creative forces, the creative desires in a human being, the Swadhisthana chakra, which is actually the gonads of a human body, the gonads, the sexual organs, the sexual nerve plexus of a human body, where procreation happens. And that is why, incidentally, Brahma, the creator, has been put here as the deity. Om Paramahamsaya Namaha. Hamsa being the divine swan, his Vahana, his vehicle, where you have the procreation. Paramahamsaya Namaha, the sacral chakra. Now coming to the next chakra, could you read it?
Solar plexus, Manipura Chakra, Mahavishnu, Om Clean, Narayanaya Namaha.
And 8 times.
8 times.
Repetition of this mantra 8 times. Om Klim Narayana. Here, if you note, the letters Gam for Ganapati, then the Om for Brahma, which is Omkara, which is common for all the mantras, and then the Klim here coming each. Now down the line, you can see the other mantras also, where you have this Bija, they call it the Bija, the seed mantra, which is this main mantra, the Moola mantra for any deity, where the invoking is done. Rather than chanting entire mantra, an invoking is done with the bija, which is more stronger. And that is how people, the great saints and the great saints, used to meditate with the bija mantras and repetition of it for n number of times to invoke the deity and get the energies into them and to activate the chakras. So here we have the solar plexus. Solar plexus, as it rightly indicates, the solar energies, the digestive forces inside your stomach, where solar energy is there, in the sense it digests, it is Agni. So that is why it is known as Mani, Manipura Chakra. It is full of energy, the full money of energy, the full seed of energy, where you have all the digestive forces, the Jataragni, the stomach. So where the solar plexus is there, and where the deity rightly is depicted as Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu being a deity who is always depicted as having a yoga nidra, sleeping in a relaxed posture most of the times, which indicates a person being comfortable once the stomach, the Manipura chakra, is full. When a person is comfortable with food and shelter, when a person is contented, when a person is happy and comfortable after eating in a contented way. Om Klim Narayanaya Namaha 8 times. Now coming to the next one.
Heart,
Can you-
Anahata Chakra, Dakshinamurti, Vidya
Yes.
Medo Yasha Pragnya, Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. 12 times. Om Jnananandaya Namaha. 12 times.
Yes, here we have the next chakra, which is the heart chakra, which is in the heart chakra, where we call it in Sanskrit as Anahata. Anahata chakra. Anahata means involuntary because it functions involuntary. Anahata, you hear the sounds involuntary, the lub-dub of your heart. Even if you are sleeping, the heart functions. You are not controlling it, it automatically controls your body. So that is why it is known as Anahata Abja chakra. And here the deity Dakshinamurti, because the heart is the seat of your desires, the seat of your emotions, and the seat of your thinking, where you Dakshinamurti, where you require consciousness, where you require discreteness of thinking and emotions. That is where you have discreteness comes with learning. Discreteness comes with your getting more conscious to your surroundings. Discreteness comes with your studies. Discreteness comes with your learning and education. That is why you have the deity of Dakshinamurti, who is the embodiment of jnana, who is the embodiment of consciousness, chitta, and Dakshinamurti, where the mantra is Vidya Medho Yasha Prajna. Vidya is education, Medho is buddhi, Yashaha is your kirti, that is your prominence, your becoming famous, the fame, and Prajna is your consciousness. Vidya Medho Yasha Prajna Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. 12 times. And an alternative where it's in the Shaivite and Vaishnavite cult, that is why here two mantras are given. Om Jnananandaya Namaha. Hayagriva is the deity there. Jnanananda in the Vaishnavite cult. That is why both the deities are given here to chant according to each one's convenience. Because as we clearly know, the divine energy is one and the same, but for our convenience of the human nature, we have different visual representations of that, whether it is Ganpati, whether it is Dakshinamurti, whether it is Jesus, whether it is Buddha, depending on each one's method of discipline, you chant in different ways, but the bija is the same. Now coming to the next chakra.
Vishuddha chakra, Saraswati. Om Para Saraswatyai Namaha. 6 times.
Yes. Here Vishuddha chakra. Vishuddha means the most pure. Vishuddha. What should be most pure in us? The most pure thing in us should be the strong communication, the clear words, the way we express ourselves in the modern plus the old society where we were in and the modern society where we are in, and going ahead also communicating with not only our relatives, communicating not only with our surrounding, communication in the corporate, in everything where it is a success mantra. So your communication is very important. That means your Vishuddhi is very important, which is the chakra in your throat, the area which is the throat, and that is why it is known as Vishuddhi chakra. And rightly said Saraswati, the deity of communication, the deity of your clear-cut visions is to be strong and invoked. So we have the embodiment of communication, the deity of Kala, who is Saraswati, who is invoked here. Om Para Saraswati. Para means omnipotent. Para Saraswati, because communication is omnipotent. Sound waves are omnipotent. So Para Saraswati Namaha. Then we have the next chakra.
Third eye, Agna Subramanya Swami. Om Subramanyokam. 6 times.
Yes. Here we have the third eye, as I had mentioned, which is in between the eyebrows, the center point of your the forehead, and which is known as Ajna chakra. I think the spelling here is a little different, which has been put here. It is actually Ajna chakra. That is why in Sanskrit and Hindi, when you write letters, it becomes easy for getting the clear pronunciation. Many a times in English it becomes difficult, but we have to read it here as Ajna chakra. Ajna is order. In Sanskrit, the meaning is order. The order of the body is given by this particular chakra, because when we go ahead after this slide, I'll explain how that happens. Ajna chakra, the third eye, and where you have, I rightly put as per the mythology and legend, Subramanya Swami, who came out of the third eye of, supposed to be created and procreated from the third eye of the Almighty, the Parameshwara, and that is why rightly we have put here and depicted this particular visual form of the deity as Subramanya Swami here to be invoked. Om Subramanyokam 6 times. Now coming to the highest chakra, here we have. Yes.
Crown, Sahasrara chakra, Durga. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. 18 times.
Yes, Sahasrara chakra being the crown chakra, as it is said because it is in the head, forehead, in the topmost portion, which is the Sahasrara, which is having all the nerve points, and that is why it is known as Sahasrara. Sahasra means in Sanskrit 1,000, and Ara is a web of that Sahasrara. And that is why usually in pictures, it is depicted as a lotus in the forehead. Sahasrara, having lotus because it has so many petals inside that one bud, one flower, thousands of petals. So that is why it is known as Sahasrara. Sahasrara, where Durga rightly depicted the deity Durga because she holds so many weapons and is a warful deity who is full of energy, and the brain which has to be more energetic because it is the center of the brain, the cerebrum, the forehead top, which is the Sahasrara. And the bija here is Dum, Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Here I just wanted to just answer. There was a question in between which came as a print where the spelling of Ajna was asked rightly by I think Kavita ji. Ajna is A-J, A-J-G-N-A, Ajna, Ajna. Actually, A-G, Ajna, A-G, Ajna, A-G-N-A, Ajna. A-G-Y-N-A, A-G-Y-N-A, Ajna is the right spelling. Actually, you write it in Hindi or Sanskrit, it becomes more clear. Pronounce it as Ajna, Ajna. You can actually say it as A-G-N-Y-A, which is the right spelling. Yes, that is from Sri and Hari, I see here in the screen. Ajna, this is the right spelling. Yes, that's right. Now going to the next slide here. Before going into this slide, I just wanted to, regarding the chakras, we had to explain which in a brief way, which I had mentioned in the first classes of aura, just as a briefing, the chakras and aura. Here you see in this slide a lot of colors of aura. What is aura and what is chakra? Chakra and aura. Aura is the colors which depict out of a human body or any species, which happens due to the churning of energies inside the body, and the energy levels which are seen as colors when you measure it in an aura meter, or when you practice it, you see it live as colors with your naked eyes. But when you measure it in an aura meter, you see the aura colors and also the extent of the energy emissions from your body. Each body has that, and it is very scientific. It is nothing like a miracle or anything. It is a scientific thing. What is scientific about it? How these colors come out as aura? These various colors which you see, basically the 14 colors which are depicted here in this slide, basically, there are more colors according to the enhancement of a human body or an animal body when the enhancement of the chakras happens. Because once the chakras churn inside you and you are practicing the chakra healing, or you are practicing the enhancement of your chakras due to various processes, maybe it is your own metabolism, or you do some meditative yogic practices, when the aura improves because the chakra churns and the aura is emitted out. And these are the various colors, basically the purple, the blue. Can anyone read the colors? Yes, can I have?
So that will be purple, blue,
Yes.
green, yellow, orange,
Yes.
red,
Yes.
pink, brown, gray,
Yes.
black,
Yes.
white,
Yes.
silver, gold,
Yes.
and
Yes.
rainbow.
Yes. Here we see, thank you. Here we see these 14 colors, which are the basic colors emitted out as aura from a human body or any species, the body, from various chakras in your body, various regions, the various chakras, the chakras which we described in the previous slides. Now we come to what is chakra, because I explained what is aura in a simple way. Of course, in detail, you can see through the first sessions of the recordings which came in the for the benefit of others who have not attended also. And that's why I'm making this recap. But go through after this class, please go through the YouTube channel where you have the first recordings, and you take out that recording and keep it for yourself as record so that you can go through in detail. Anyway, now after the explanation of aura, what is chakra? The chakras are what we named here in the previous slide, but what are they actually? They are the nerve plexus. There are two types of chakras in a human body, and these both are combined as one chakra, and which is what, when you churn together, emits out this aura in a human body or an animal body, according to the enhancement of the chakras. And what are these chakras? The chakras are Parakosha chakras and Sukshma chakras. They are Parakosha chakras and Sukshma chakras. The chakra names which were mentioned here were all the Parakosha chakras. The Parakosha chakras are placed in the human body physically as the nerve plexus in each point where this portion of the human body was depicted. That is from Muladhara, which is just below your tailbone. Then coming, this is all in the vertebral area where you have the nerve plexus. In science, in a medical science, it is termed as the nerve plexus, the Muladhara. Then you have the Swadhisthana just above that from the L4. Then you have from there going rising up. You have the Manipura that is behind the stomach in the vertebral portion where you have the nerve plexus again. Then again going up like this, you have that Parakosha chakras. The same is coordinated by the Sukshma chakras inside for each one of these chakras. In the back portion of your body placed as nerve plexus, you have the same portion part in the front portion of your body inside where you have each one of the endocrine glands, which is actually the Sukshma chakras. The endocrine glands. Why the endocrine glands? The endocrine glands are the ones which secrete, according to the medical sciences, the hormones, the 7 to 8 hormones, main hormones in your body. The hormones which get emitted and secreted from the endocrine glands, each of the Sukshma chakra, into your bloodstream, the circulatory system, and which coordinates and gives signals, and which is coordinated in an unseen way medically with the nerve plexus, which acts on your body. See, that is why when we explain this in a simple spiritual way, the yogic masters explain to us in such a way that it was depicted like a trident, like a trident. You see a picture of a trident, you have three divisions in the upper head of the trident, holding it with a pedestal, holding the three heads in one pedestal down, going straight down. The going straight down is your vertebral column, which is behind your body, having inside it all the nerve plexus connected. The bone holds it. And you have the three heads in the trident, which is one is the nervous system, the other is the circulatory system, and the other is the skeletal system, the bone system. These three systems connected together, and the fluid which flows inside them, all the fluids, the 3/4 of the fluids in your body, like a world which is depicted by the Almighty, the universe, where again it is surrounded by 3/4 of water. The same way your body, which is full of these fluids, 3/4 of it, covered up by your kosha, that is the parakosha, that is your nervous system and all your skin and everything which covers up this. The blood, the synovial fluid, the lymph fluid, the phlegm, the gonadial fluid, all these fluids in your body, the digestive fluids. This is what is the chakra. The churning of the energies between the endocrine glands and the nerve plexus, if you put it in a medical way. If you put it in a spiritual way, the churning of the Parakosha and the Sukshma chakras. Both ways, if you put it, either spiritual or medical, both are one and the same, only the terminology is different. When it is put in a spiritual way, we put it in a Sanskrit way. When you put it in a medical way, we put it in the English way. That's the only thing, biological way. So this is the basic theory between the chakra and the aura and the churning of these energies. And that is where we have what was said by the yogic masters in many texts in those days, where we have the Kundalini Yoga, Kundalini, which is the Muladhara chakra, from Kundalini, and Sahasrara Yoga, where it is from the highest form of your crown chakra. Now coming to the next slide. And the arousal, the enhancement and the arousal of these chakras and the Parakosha and Sukshma chakras and the nerve plexus. That is the Parakosha and Sukshma chakras, the chakra and arousal of that and enhancement by these great masters, the ascended masters as we call them, ascending of the energies in them. That is why we call them as ascended masters, because they rise in their yogic powers by the arousal of their chakras and churning from the Muladhara to the Sahasrara in various levels, each one in different levels, by which they attain. Because once you enhance and go to the highest form of energies and arousal of your chakras, depending on the arousal levels, you reach different siddhis, which are the Ashtasiddhis. And Ashtasiddhis, where you become dimensionless when you reach the extreme of the Ashtasiddhis. Dimensionless, where a human being becomes a superhuman being, as you see in graphics and all, which is really happening in many parts of the world, which has happened in earlier days by the ascended masters, and nowadays also by normal human beings, many of them who are superhuman beings in their intelligence, in their achievements, in their way of getting dimensionless into 3 dimensions and all. So where we have the theory of 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional and all. And here I have another print question here, which says, will we get a copy of this recording by Kavita? Yes, definitely the YouTube channel copy. I'll be passing on to everyone for the first session of it. In just after this session of today's class, I'll be forwarding it to all the participants once again, for the benefit of them. Now, this ascended masters, as we say, and the Ashtasiddhis in them, you can see many of these masters here depicted in these slides. Can anyone say who are all the masters? Can anyone read out, seeing the pictures? Yes.
We will
Lord
tell.
Buddha,
Yes, tell me. Can you please read out the, in the sense, can you just say who are all these masters? Can you say, seeing the pictures? I hope everyone is.
Buddha, Baba,
Yes, yes,
Jesus, Ramana
yes,
Maharishi, Raghavendra,
yes,
Paramahamsar, Amritanandamayi,
yes.
Vivekananda.
Ramakrishna, yeah,
Paramahamsa
Vivekananda,
Yoga.
Paramahamsar's wife, I forget her name.
Paramahamsa
Sharda.
Yoga.
Sharda
Paramahamsa
Devi.
Yoga.
Sharda Devi, Vivekananda, and I
Yes.
don't know the name of the other person on the top.
Yes, it's okay. The slide which is depicted here down with the 3 people, that is the Sangeeta Trimurtis of
Trimurti,
Karnataka.
yeah.
Yes,
Muthuswami
Muthuswami.
Dikshidhar, Tyagarajar, and Shama Shastri.
Yes, rightly said. So all
Who
this
is in the topmost right?
Which one?
Topmost right? Next
Topmost
to
right,
above
Paramahamsa.
Vivekananda?
It is Paramahamsa Yogananda. Most of
Oh.
us would have heard and read the book called
Book,
the Life History of the, the
Autobiography.
Autobiography.
Autobiography of the Yogi. That is done by him. And a lot of workshops and a lot of things have been done by His Holiness. And we have his ashram in Canada.
Okay.
Basically, the headquarters is in Canada.
Okay.
Okay. So these are the ascended masters in various forms. Here, if you see why I wanted you to say who are all these people, various time zones and time periods when they lived and really, gave their input to the whole world, and showing the different siddhis and also showing the levels of ascendance which can be done with the energies in oneself as a human being. Most of them were normal, simple human beings who had a very poor background, but who rose to such levels of height in the spiritual energies and who gave a lot of knowledge and benefit to the whole world. And in this slide, if you see, in various time zones, we have now presently Amritanandamayi, who is still in the physical point, in the physical body, alive for us to guide. And so many of them still here in this world, in various parts of the world, where people take directions to, and people learn a lot of things too. So these were the ascended masters who could churn the energies of the chakras and create the aura to such a levels, an aura from a level of a ring in each one of us, different rings. That is the level of extent of emission, from where it can be developed and enhanced to the level of a band, which is more thicker and more distance from our body, which emits out the distances. And then we turn it further, like this masters, to a halo inside, above us, the whole halo covering the entire body, energizing ourselves, which can be developed, of course, through simple day-to-day practices, where we had also a session of ritualistic versus spiritualistic practices day-to-day in life, which the recording of which also I'll share with every one of you, because that is also connected with our aura enhancement. The practices which we do each day in our life definitely matters a lot, whether it is even a simple thing like brushing a teeth, Danta Shuddhi, which is done, which is also very important, and the significance of it and how that can contribute to the aura enhancement and the chakra churning has been done in that session of our workshop, which was done earlier, which the recording of which also I will share with each one of you, so that you can go through that, which helps really to learn this aura and chakra healing in the practical way rather than just listening to the Ramayana and going away, right? Let us all take out the benefits of that. Now, after going through this small recap of what we had in the first sessions, the recordings which I'll give you later of that session, we go to today's main topic, the second level, where we go to the next slide, where we have the activation of chakras. What are the methods of activation? And what are the foods of activation? And how do you coordinate between the chakras, Parakosha and Sukshma? This is the topic of today, the second level, the first day, where we go in depth. Now, going to this slide here, I think the first slide of the first session of Aura, the same slide is depicted here, where we can see the different chakras in a meditative pose. I hope everyone is able to see that. Just have a look at that so that you get an idea more clearly. And once again, going into the chakras here. Can you see this? Can anyone tell me now, just because we have already gone through now, can anyone just tell me the names of the chakras in an order? Yes.
Dhara,
Yes. I'm not able.
Sahasrana chakra, Agya chakra, and then Vishuddhi
Yeah.
chakra, heart chakra, and then Manipura chakra, Swadhisthana chakra, and Mooladhara chakra.
Yes. So you have come from the order from the topmost, that is from the Sahasrara to the Mooladhara. So you are doing the Sahasrara yoga. Okay. Now, can you see this next, the slide near that, which is on your right side, where you have the meditative pose, the basic meditative pose, and where Gautama Buddha is depicted here, right? Is displayed, the slide is displayed where showing Gautama Buddha in a meditative pose. The same way where we have in the first line on the left side here with the chakras depicted. Now here we go to the meditation and meditative methods, which are very important for aura and chakra enhancement. Now, when we go for that, here we have a methodology which simple way in various texts, generally people practice. Can anyone just go through it in a fast way? Can anyone read it in a fast way? Can any one of you?
I can read.
Through. Read the basic points in a fast way.
Chakra meditation begins by sitting in a comfortable position with your spine straight but not ridged. The next step is to focus on the breath. Next,
Yes.
in chakra meditation, you want to visualize the beating of the heart and the perfect function of the body. Next, in
Yes.
chakra meditation, you should imagine a life-giving energy that you are breathing in along with the air. See this energy as a yellowish orange color.
Yes. Come to the next point.
See this energy encompass your entire body and infuse your aura. As
No.
this energy infuses your aura, imagine the aura growing stronger, brighter, and being charged with this incredible energy. Do this step gradually. Let the aura grow brighter little by little and keep this energy flowing in with each breath.
Okay, here, sorry to interrupt. Here in these 4 points which they said in the slide, basically we can make out that the simple words and terminologies which were used here in the practices generally, where the first thing is you have to keep yourself straight and sit so that your spine is straight. That is the first point, simple. Whereby they said that way you have to sit so that your energy flows from the Kundalini in the straight way to the Sahasrara. That was a basic thing, for the energy flow to go in a straight way. The second thing is just like the vertebra. The second thing is they said you have to control the breath and you have to have a practice of the breathing, taking in and taking out, which is the breathing exercise which we simply do every day, most of us, so that our lung capacity increases. So it is actually to build up the strength of your Anahatabja chakra, which is the lung capacity, which is the heart chakra, where you have the thymus gland as the Sukshma chakra in between the lungs. Right? Then we go for the third thing where they see you have to see the beating of the heart again. the beating of the heart and the function, because the heart is the Anahatabja chakra, which is very important. Then the basic thing they said, you have to imagine the air going inside and you have an yellowish orange color. That is just for you to get an idea how your aura has to emit out as energies, to give you a visual effect of that. Now coming to the next points, where you could read the 5, 6, and 7. Can you go through that in a simple way? Just not the whole thing, just the basic words which are important there.
Okay. Chakra meditation is energize each individual chakra. Root chakra, and imagine a clockwise swirl of energy.
Yes. Now go to the next.
Chakra meditation, we want to move up to the sacral chakra. Then one
So
by one.
Yes. So here, what happens is, here the point is they are mentioning about each chakra rising from the Muladhara to the Sahasrara. Each chakra, when you sit straight and do this breathing and things, how the energy flows from each chakra to the next level, and where your energy is streamlined and you get the aura out of your body from the chakra journey. Now, before going to the next slide, here we come to the basic, from these basic points, we go to the in-depth analysis of it in a very spiritual and scientific way, which was mentioned in the olden Granthas, rather than the simple way of putting it in this slide, where we have seen the basic points for a layman, but which has to be taken more scientifically in our times now, in a very more concrete way, which I am explaining now, where I want everyone to, that's why I asked everyone today participating to bring a notebook so that they can note down points which are not in the slide, which is more important now. So we go here to the basic methodology of this meditation. Here, if you see these basic points mentioned now, which you read out, it were more of a meditation practice, which was mentioned here. Why meditative practice? What is meditation, first of all? Meditation, if you split the words, you have the idea, which is like me, that is you, me, ideate emotion. You ideate a ishan. Ishan in English means a motion, that is a movement, M-O-V-E-M-E-N-T, a movement. You make a movement. Ideate, what you do, you ideate. You ideate in the sense you create an idea, you create a desire inside you, which creates a movement. So me, ideate a motion is what is meditation. So you have to create a motion in yourself. You have to create a movement in yourself. What is a movement? A movement is not just moving physically. A movement could be also a thinking. A movement could also be a desire. A movement means an activity, a karma created within you, a karma created by you. That is meditation. Meditation doesn't necessarily mean that you sit in a place and just meditate like what was mentioned in this slide. It is just the basic principle which was mentioned in the slide. But meditation, the higher level, when you go to a higher level, it is any idea where you make a movement from within yourself, and which will create a karma, which will create an activity in you, make you more energized. And how you take that meditation depends on each one's energy and each one's methodology, which could be different, though the basic methods are mentioned in a lot of texts. Now, how do we get this idea? How do we initiate the meditation? Ideas come into each one of us through our indriyas, as I had mentioned in the first aura sessions, again, where the record will be given to you. Indriyas, what are the indriyas? Indriyas are the 5 senses in your body: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the skin. The 5 indriyas: eyes, the chakshu, as mentioned in Sanskrit; ears, the karna, as mentioned in Sanskrit again; nose, the grhana, which is nasika, which is mentioned in Sanskrit; tongue, the jihva, which is the strongest thing for communication, which is mentioned in Sanskrit; and skin, the tvak, where you have the kaya clinics and all, doing all the skin treatments, the beauty treatments. Kaya is the word for in Sanskrit for the body, the skin. Tvak is the another synonym for that. So all these panchendriyas, that is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, the feeling, all these feelings, the reflexes, basically the senses in you, the 5 senses in you, are in Sanskrit named as indriyas. The senses are indriyas. These are the organs which take the feelings, the reflexes inside your body, which initiates a movement inside your body. What are the movements? First of all, you have the Indriyollasa. Ullasa in Sanskrit means happiness. Ullasa means a movement, Ullasa. You swirl, you just move, you have a shake, which is Indriyollasa. All the five, sorry, all the five senses, taking inside all the feelings from the atmosphere, from the universe. From the universe, all these things are taken inside your body by these five indriyas. When you get a movement, when you get a happiness, when you get a bliss, when you get a slight movement inside your body, which is known as indriyollasa. So the first way of meditation is to have a right seeing, see right things, hear right things, smell right things, taste right things, touch right things, get into the right atmosphere. So whatever you imbibe from the atmosphere, from the universe, you should do all these things in the right way. Sorry. So all this done in a right way, you get an indriyollasa, you get an energy inside you. That is the first method, that is the first stage of your meditation, when you will start ideating a feeling, when you will start ideating a movement. Then what happens when all these things get inside your body from your reflexes, the indriyas, then you have the mukhollasa, then your face blushes, then your face has lot of display of emotions, when your face really gets into a lot of mode of emotions and changes. That is what is known as mukhollasa. Mukha is the face. So you have the mukhollasa. That is the second stage of your meditation in a simple layman's language. Then you go to the third stage. When your face has that emotions, your body reacts to it, where it becomes sharirollasa. Your body takes to sharira. Sharira is the body, which gets a happiness. Sharirollasa. It is something like this. When you think of something, which is the indriyas which bring in the idea inside you from the universe, then your face blushes or your face frowns, whatever it is, whatever emotions, and then your body reacts to it. That becomes the next stage of meditation, that is sharirollasa. Then what happens? This becomes deeply embedded in your mind. It enters your mind, which becomes the chittollasa, the mind, which is a seat of all the imbibing and storage of ideas, chittollasa. Then what happens? It enters the next stage of meditation, where it is buddhi ullasa. Then you take selective discreteness to take it to your brain, and you record, you memorize only things which is required for you, and the other things you just flush it out. Each one of us does these things involuntarily every day, but when we start realizing and doing it in a voluntary way by our practices, that is what is meditation. It is nothing like just sitting in one place. It is these things which are more important. And that is why Granthas had these deep methods which were not mentioned in other texts of nowadays. That is why we don't get these words in the nowadays text, where a lot of yogic masters have brought out all these things. Now, again, I repeat it because I had a display here showing that the writing could not be done faster. I'll repeat it again after finishing the last stage of meditation, which is Atmollasa. Once it reaches the buddhi, where you take selected things and only store for your future use, each one of us by our so-called samarthya, that is our cleverness or our discreteness, when it becomes buddhi ullasa meditation, where we sharpen our buddhi, which is buddhi meditation. Then it enters our Atma, permanently imbibed inside us, and it stays till we die. And after that, also taken to the next birth, which is known as Atma Ullasa. We reach the divine bliss, the soul bliss, which is the Atma Ullasa. So the various forms from the, as good as the chakras, from which we have analyzed now the 7 chakras, the same way we have the various stages of meditation. The starting of it from the base level is Indriyollasa. Indriyollasa. I'll anyway, after this session, share the recordings to each one of you again for you to practice it properly. Indriyollasa and Mukhollasa being the second stage, the third stage being Sharirollasa, the fourth stage being Chitta Ullasa, the fifth stage being Buddhi Ullasa, and the sixth stage, the highest form reaching the Sahasrara, being the Atma Ullasa. I hope everyone has taken a note of this. Could any one of you repeat this, please? The different stages of meditation in a day-to-day basis, which each one of us does involuntarily, which we have to now practice voluntarily to make it more stronger. Can anyone read out the names?
Indriyo Ullasa,
Hmm.
Mukho Ullasa, Shariro Ullasa, Chitta Ullasa, Buddhi Ullasa, and Atma Ullasa.
Yes, right. Very good. Now we come to one of the most important things. As each one of us is aware, life in itself, life, L-I-F-E in English, if you just decipher it, is a form of liberative influences of familiar events. It's a form of liberative influences in each one of us for familiar events which we have gone through each day, and we keep on repeating it. So it becomes an experimental garland. Life as such, when you split it, is an experimental garland of events. It's a garland of events, n number of events which we keep on going through and which we have to churn in the right way by doing this sort of meditation which we do involuntarily. Now, how do we do it in a voluntary way? That is the next practical methodology we are going into, so that we strongly do it in a voluntary way, which we have been doing involuntarily, so that what happens is it is like the churning of your energies in the right way, that is from Kundalini to Sahasrara and Sahasrara to Kundalini. It is a reverse osmosis in the human body which happens, just like it is scientifically proven in the medical way. The nervous flow which is from the down to the top, and the blood flow which is from the top to the bottom, that is from Kundalini to Sahasrara, Sahasrara to Kundalini, which is the yoga, which is known as yoga, but which is actually medicine. It's the reverse osmosis of the body, where the nervous flow, the lymphatic flow, and the blood flow goes opposite, but churns together. Churns together to create a balance and bring out the aura in you, the energies in you, and makes you more alive and blissful. Right? The same thing is what we are here describing as this different ullasas, the methodologies of meditation, where we are already doing it involuntarily, where the flow of the nervous thing, where the flow of the blood happens from the reverse osmosis, from the Sahasrara to the bottom. But where now we have to take the other way around, where we have to churn it with also the voluntary action of from Kundalini to Sahasrara. How do we do that? The methodology for that, now we have the other terminologies in the granthas which are mentioned. Everybody can take a note of it, where we have Yoga Nidra being the first methodology. What we do every day, we have a sound sleep in the night, right? Which is a Samadhi Sthiti. Nidra Samadhi Sthiti. Samadhi, Nidra, Shavasana in yoga is Samadhi Sthiti, which is Nidra. What is Yoga Nidra? Why you call it just Nidra and why you call it as Yoga Nidra? What is the difference? Yoga Nidra, if many of us have seen the picture of Mahavishnu, which is depicted as if he's sleeping on the Adisesha, the Lord sleeping on the Adisesha in a limitless form, you can see the mudras which he is using and sleeping. It is not just a straight sleep. He has the hand, I hope everyone is able to see my hand, like this, placed as a support for the head, and the other hand placed like this below, right? This is the Varadha Mudra, giving the Varadha, and this is the Sahaya Mudra, giving the support, right? He gives the support to the Sahasrara, the head, and the Varada Mudra down, flow of energy down till the foot. So this is the Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is the Samadhi Sthiti, from where we imbibe. When we are in Samadhi Sthiti, involuntarily, our body, the Indriyas, imbibe lot of things from the universe inside us. That is the Indriyollasa. So the first step of Indriyollasa is achieved by our sound sleep, our sleeping posture, which we described in the first levels of aura, which again, of course, everyone will get it, where we have the various postures of sleep. The sleep postures are very important to, first of all, bring in the energies of meditation and the meditative methodology inside each one of us in a voluntary way. So the first step of meditation is a sound sleep. The first step of meditation is a posture of sleep, which is very important to bring in the energies inside us through our indriyas inside our body in the right way of flow rather than a disruptive flow. So that is where we have Yoga Nidra, where Mahavishnu was depicted. He is an embodiment of Nidra in a yogic way, Yoga Nidra. Now coming to the next step in the meditative practices, which we can do every day. That is where we had that slide depicting Buddha sitting in a posture. From Nidra, we rise and we sit in the morning, right? But how do we sit? The sitting postures are very important. That is where we have the meditations of the conventional way, which is depicted in all texts, where we have Buddha also in the slide and very many saints who sit like that and do the bhajan or whatever. So that is where we have the yogasana, the different yogasanas, where you have the sitting posture. So from Nidra to sitting posture, yogasana. That is the second method of the meditation methodology, where we come to the point of mukhollasa, where we have the mukha ullasa, where you have the peaceful face, where you have a blissful face, where you have the emotions depicted in a very soft and pure way, where you have that peace in your mind which shows in your face. That is where you have the yogasana, which is the second step in your meditative methodology, which is mukhollasa. You reach the mukhollasa state. Now, where you reach the sarirollasa state, your body should make a movement. So what is the next step? We go to uttapaya. Uttapaya is what? We walk. We walk in the day to different places. We walk to do certain kriyas. We walk to do our work. We work, we walk, we make movements, and the right movements we make, that is uttapaya, the right movement. So what does it mean? Each day, each one of us is doing all these things in an involuntary way, in many ways. Only thing is, we don't streamline that and we do it in a disruptive way. And that is where we are not able to achieve the results of this meditation, which each one of us is doing n number of times a day. So now the basic hidden point between the lines, if you read, is that all these things we are doing it, but if we try to take time out to do every day when we do these things, when we take time in between that itself without disrupting the time to analyze how you are doing it, then I think you will all be doing it in a very streamlined way, which will really give us the results of the aura enhancement. Now coming to the next step, where uttapaya, when we do, we get the sharira ullasa, we get the movements, we get the exercises, we get the churning of energies in our body. The body gets activated, where the Muladhara chakras and all get activated. Now coming to the next level, where we reach chitta ullasa, the mind becoming more happier and blissful and activated. How does that happen? Once all these things, yoga nidra to yogasana to uttapaya, we practice in a voluntary way, then we achieve the sense of getting the senses concentrated, the eyes to see what only we want to see, not everything. What we want to hear, only we hear. We become very selective. So here is what is known as the modern terminology wise, we say that to be the selectiveness of things, the selectiveness of our senses, how to churn and select, be selective for things. That is where we achieve success in life. So the selective things, the selectiveness in us getting increased, and that is where we have it in Sanskrit mentioned as Indriya Ekagratva. Indriya Ekagratva. Ekagra is concentration. Concentrate the hearing, concentrate the seeing, concentrate the smelling, concentrate the tasting, concentrate the touching, feeling to the selectiveness of what we require. That is where we become more selective, more go introspecting inside ourselves. That is the meditation which is Indriya Ekagratva, which each one of us is, of course, again doing it every day, but in a disrupted way. So now we start doing it voluntarily, analyzing in between whatever we do every day, which itself is the meditation methodology in strength, which gives us the Chitta Ullasa. Now coming to, from Chitta Ullasa, from the mind, we imbibe the selectiveness into our Buddhi, which is buddhi ullasa, the bliss of the buddhi. How do we get that? The bliss of the buddhi comes when all this selectiveness goes into our mind in the right way and is stored there, not just forgetting it. So that means, what is it? It is chitta spurita. It is known as chitta spurita. Spurita means spelling out. Chitta means the mind. How does chitta spurita happen? Chitta spurita happens when we sharpen our memory. That is the yoga, that is the meditation, memory sharpening. How do we do that? We will be automatically able to do that if we voluntarily become more selective with our indriya ekagratva. Only things which we want, we do. Only things which we want, we hear. Only things which we want, we see. Only things we don't just see n number of things and just take it inside. We only take what is required inside as discreteness. That is when we get the chitta spurita meditation, where we get our buddhi ullasa, which happens. Then we come to atma ullasa. Then we become full in ourselves, where the soul gets the bliss. How does that Atma Upasana, Atma Ullasa, the soul meditation happens? It happens when we have Atmalaya. Atmalaya is taking all these things from the Yoga Nidra to the Chitta Spurita. When we practice it in a voluntary way, we reach the bliss inside automatically, which becomes the Atmalaya. When once all these things happen, we do this meditation every day in a voluntary way, that is where we reach Prachando Jwala. Prachando Jwala means the energy out. Ujjwala is the emergence, effluence of the energy, the halo of aura around you. You become from the ring to the brand to the halo. Just from a ring which we are in, where we are in every day by doing it involuntarily, we get to the mode of banding it, where we become more stronger. And from then, when we take it forward, we reach the levels of Prachanto Jwala. We reach the level of the halo, like the ascended masters, where we become more superhumans. Rather, in our effort for today and the days ahead, we will become more, specific, and we will become more successful in the modern context. Can now any one of you repeat this terminologies which I mentioned, the different methods of meditation in a day-to-day practice, voluntary way, which we should do? Have you noted down the names?
Yoga Nidra,
Yes.
Yogasanas, Uttapaya,
Yes.
Indriya Ekagratva,
Yes.
Chitta Spurita, and
Yes.
Atmalaya.
Yes. And then what do we achieve after that?
We have Prachandojwala that we achieve.
That is meaning we achieve the halo in us, the energies churned from the chakras, both the Parakosha and Sukshma getting intertwined. We reach the levels of halo, from the ring to the band to the halo of the ascended masters. That means success in our endeavors in a more concrete way rather than an imaginary way, right? So how does this happen, and what is actually happening when we do all these things? Actually, what is happening is, from the universal energies, because your indriyas are taking out everything from the universe, right? You hear, all these things, smell, all these things from the atmosphere around you. That is the universe around you, the universal energies. So it becomes something called in Sanskrit like samsarga, the association of all these things inside you, where you take it from the Brahmanda. Brahmanda is the universe. And then it's Spurito Urjaha, the energies of it. Urja is the energies, get spelled out inside you. It gets inside you. And that is when you are giving it back to the universe also, by putting your meditation and bringing the success in you, which creates a new society in itself by your experiment. That is why I said life is an experimental garland, right? Now, coming to this methodology of meditations, which have in a very strong way in the olden days granthas, which I mentioned here, from the simple methods of what we do practice by sitting in one place, then doing a peaceful, keeping your face peaceful and sitting and closing your eyes and taking a deep breath, which is the general practice, and where we do that with this knowing the exact points of how to do it voluntarily, which I mentioned now, then we really reach that levels. And I want each one of us to, from today, practice it in our day-to-day life, where you do not require a separate time to sit in one place and do it. In your day-to-day practices, just voluntarily Read between your activities, you will be able to do it automatically because you are already doing it. Just you have to streamline it. That's the only thing. So in your work itself, you reach that heights. You reach heights in everything. Everything you do. That is what is seen here. Now coming to the various mudras. Mudras, in the sense, mudras are things which are the physical representations of your body, where your sharira is taking to various body representations, which gives you also an imbibing of energy inside you. What are the various mudras of meditation which are taken? The mudras are basically, there are n number of mudras. There are more than 108 mudras in a human body which can be done to imbibe the energies when you do a meditation separately. But then, as I had mentioned, we can do this voluntary meditation every day, each one of us, which we are doing, instead of even going for the conventional sitting and doing in a place. But if you have time, then you can go for the mudras. The mudras, basic mudras of certain mudras which are easily done, which imbibe more energy inside us, is what I am just giving a terminology of that just for a reference. Okay. The first mudra, everyone can note that. The first mudra is the Kamala mudra. Kamala mudra being Abja. Abja means lotus. Kamala means lotus in Sanskrit. Kamala mudra, like this. I think everyone can see my hand. Kamala mudra. Like a lotus, you keep your hands near your chest and then meditate or concentrate a few minutes or a few seconds in a day in the morning, in the early morning. You get a lot of energy inside you, the Kamala mudra. Then you have the Varada mudra. Varada mudra is the hand shown like this, Varada mudra, where the energies enter from the universe inside you and vice versa, because the skin is porous. It enters inside and goes out.
When you're doing Varad Mudra, dusra hath kya karna chahiye? How do
You can keep both the hands like this, Varada mudra. Then you have the Abhaya mudra. Abhaya mudra. Abhaya.
Bharata Mudra, where do we have to keep it? Open air.
Open air, like
Oh,
this.
okay.
Both the hands you can do, or one hand, whatever it is. It
No,
gives
not
you
in
a lot.
any, not in any part of the body.
No, not in any part of the body. It's outside.
Okay.
It is outside to the atmosphere.
Okay.
Then you have the Abhaya mudra. Abhaya mudra is like this. Abhaya mudra. Can you see this? This is also given out to the atmosphere. Abhaya. Abhaya means protection. Abhaya mudra. You protect the universe protects you. It's the thanksgiving to the universe. Abhaya mudra. You learn the method. It is actually a gesture which gives you the thinking that you are actually being supported by the universe and you are giving thanks to that. You are having the gratitude to that, to the atmosphere in you and the atmosphere outside. Abhaya mudra. Then you have the Atma mudra. Atma mudra, like this, which touches the chest. You keep it near your chest area. Atma mudra, your soul inside from the Anahata Abja. It is energized inside the Atma, the soul. And the Trikuta mudra. Trikuta mudra, here you can see the fingers and keep it. The Trikuta mudra is towards your eyes, the third eye, the Trikuta mudra. Trikuta, in between the eyebrows, it is the third eye. You activate the third eye, the Trikuta mudra, right? And then you have the Jnana mudra. Jnana mudra, of course, the basic methodology of meditation. You can see in any slide, any saint sitting in a Padmasana and doing a Jnana mudra. This is the Jnana mudra, right? So these are the basic, some of the basic mudras here. And you have the last of them, the two more mudras, which are the simple mudras, which is the Arpana mudra. You give the Arpana, you give the Samarpana, you give back to the society, Arpana mudra. You have the habit of giving back to the society to enhance it. Not only you develop the society around you, Arpana mudra. Then you have the Prakriya mudra, Prakriya. Kriya, that is the activity, prakriya, getting proactivated, prakriya mudra. What is the prakriya mudra? Prakriya mudra is this. From the earth. Why like this? Because from the earth, you are pulling out the energies. Prakriya, prakriti. From the prakriti, you are pulling out the energies towards you and the society. Prakriya mudra. so that nothing is static. It starts rotating, it starts going, it starts moving. Prakriya Mudra. These are the basic mudras. Of course, I just mentioned for a just a reference, but actually the yogic practices, the meditative practices, which we have already said is basically enough. There is only an extra this thing for people who, when they get time, when you have a holiday or something, you can practice that to enhance it further. That's it. Now, coming to the next slide, where we have a very important thing. When we do this activations of energy for the chakra and aura healing.
Mama,
Yes.
one question. When you do these mudras, right, do you have like a particular order we have to follow this?
These mudras don't have an order. You can follow it in whichever way you want it.
Okay, and do you need to chant something or just breathing?
It is just breathing is enough. There is no need of any chant. Even if you require a chanting, the basic first level chanting of what that Gam Ganapate and all those things can be done. But even if you don't do that, also the meditation happens.
And how many minutes or seconds do we need to hold on to these mudras?
There is no fixed time for that. That's why I said you can take a few seconds out, you can take a few minutes out, depending on your day's activity.
Okay.
Yes.
One question, Dev here. Can you please repeat the Trikuta Mudra?
Trikuta Mudra, you can see the fingers here, just in between your eyebrows. See, you bring all together. See, when you bring it to your eyebrows, you can see my fingers, all the 4 fingers like this attached to the thumb, and you keep it to the third eye. Right?
Right.
Could you see that?
Yeah.
This is the Trikuta Mudra.
And there was one more which was after Trikuta, there was and the last one, Prakriya Mudra. Can you just show that once more? I just missed out.
Prakriya Mudra, this basically these 2 fingers down actually to the earth, Prakriya Mudra, because you pull out the energies from the earth, from the Prakriti.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, excuse me. I have a question. These mudras, you said we can do any,
Yes.
right? So whatever we are manifesting, thinking of that, we can do that like the.
Yes, you can do it thinking of that, whatever you want to manifest, whatever you think inside yourself, you can think of that and then do this mudra so that the energies are imbibed faster. Right? Now we go to the next slide where we have something very important, the next step in our activation, which is the foods of activation. It is very important what we eat as per the Indriyas, because the Indriyas, as we see, are the basic things which take the senses inside, the reflexes inside to process them, to do our meditation in the right way, to enhance our aura. So the foods in us is very important. The foods, how we practice and appreciate and worship the foods we eat and assimilate the same on a Samaya Bhaddha Paddhati. Samaya Bhaddha in the sense the timely intake of our food, the timely and patterned intake of our food and worshipping the food which we eat and realize the beauty and the soulfulness and the nutrients in it, assimilate it inside ourselves in a both conscious way by our body and our Atma and our Chitta, and also the practices of Parana and Aparana Nishtas. What is Parana and Aparana Nishtas? I will come to that after this slide. Here you can see the first slide depicting Anna Shuddhi. Anna Shuddhi, Atma Shuddhi. Anna Shuddhi is the purity, the purifying of your food before you eat it. You worship it. You are happy that you're getting the food for the day. You should realize the beauty of it. Once you start worshipping, appreciating the food before you, it becomes Anna Shuddhi. There, where in Bhagavad Gita also, you're said, in the next slide, you can see that after this, yes, here it's there, where it refers to the 3 aspects of Anna Shuddhi. Can anyone read this mantra here? You can see this slide giving you all what Bhagavad Gita says, how you appreciate your food, how you worship your food, how you feel happy, and how you invoke the food to get assimilated in the right way before you consume it and assimilate it. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmaganu Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Aham Brahmasi, Brahma, the wholeness of your food, the wholeness in your food, the wholesome diet in you, which gets you to the Brahma Shakti in you, which is what is mentioned here, worshipping the food, the whole creation, the cosmic creation. Naham Vaishwanaro Bhuta Praninam Dehamastirata Prananam Samayukta. When you do this, you know, when we do a Nevedyam, when we do an offering to the Almighty, many a times, many of us would have seen that we do that Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha, Udharaya Swaha, Brahmane Swaha. We do the Nevedyam. What is this? We are just worshipping the food. We are worshipping the beauty of it. We are worshipping and assimilating inside the nutrients. We are invoking the Brahman inside ourselves, the soul, energy inside ourselves. So it's very important what type of foods we have, the Sattva, Raja, Tamas, Gunas, which we saw in the first session of our aura classes, which is very important to enhance our energies inside. When you go for a tamasic food, your Mooladhara gets stagnated, where you end up in lot of sluggishness. So foods and the types of foods which you intake is very important to bring in the meditative methodology more stronger in you, to bring in the aura more stronger in you, to enhance and turn your chakras more stronger. So we go to the next slide where we see what all the types of sattvic foods which are to imbibe, which are to be taken to increase our powers of churning the chakras. Here we have again the mantras, which I just read out now, which worships and appreciates the food we take before we intake it from Bhagavad Gita. Can anyone read this mantra here?
Brahmarpanam Brahmahavit Brahmaknau Brahmanahudam Brahmaivadena Gandavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina.
And the second one?
Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritaha Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvitam.
Pacham Annam Chaturvidham. All the four types of annam, all the four types of foods to be pacham. Pacham is digesting. Pacham is cooking itself inside ourselves. The Brahman, invoking the Brahman in ourselves by the form of food, which we assimilate to give us the energies for the deha, the kosha, which also gives inner strength for strengthening our atma. That is what is mentioned here. So food intake and the sattvic food intake in us is very important to churn the energies of our chakras more faster and create. Just like I can give you a scientific example for this. When we take foods which are tamasic, that is over fermented foods, more of non-vegetarian food, which is more of meat rather than the fish or whatever it is. What happens scientifically, you see a lot of development of cholesterol. The cholesterol gets clogging your blood vessels. It clogs your arteries. Once your arteries are clogged, your circulatory system is clogged. When circulatory system is clogged, you have the problems to your anahatabja, the heart chakra, lot of blocks and strokes and all those things. Then what happens? The entire parakosha chakra and the sukshma chakra, your endocrine glands, get disrupted. Then all your energies, the halo in you, the aura in you gets disrupted. That is the reason scientifically it was seen that way. That is the reason in those days, spiritually, they used to say, annam, the food you take is very important, and you please take sattvic food. It was not for a religious base. It was for a spiritual and scientific base. That is why it was told in a very, those days you had to say it in a religious way, then only people listen. That's why it was put that way. Now coming to the foods which are seen in the slide, the sattvic foods, the various sattvic foods which we have around us, all the probiotic foods which we see for a healthy solar plexus, for healthy digestion, because solar plexus chakra, the Manipura chakra is very important here to process all these foods to create an energy inside you. And all these vegetables, the probiotics, the fruits which enhance and give you the churning of energy for your sukshma chakras, endocrine glands, the hormones properly secreted, your thyroid and parathyroid, which is corrected. Many of us nowadays have these thyroid problems. Thyroid problems are mostly corrected in a simple scientific way, in a natural way by you are having foods like kiwi fruit, which is very important to regulate your thyroid in a very scientific way, which is seen in the slide here. The kiwi fruit is also depicted, all the berries here. Now coming to the Parana and Aparana Nishtas. What is Parana Nishta and Aparana Nishta? Parana Nishta is a methodology of yogic practice in a meditative way to enhance your energies and chakras. In those days, practiced by many of the ascended masters, where they had this Parana Nishta. Nishta is an activity, Nishta is a discipline. Parana is not taking food from each and every place, but having a selective way of taking food, and in a Samaya Bhaddha Paddhati. Samaya Bhaddha Paddhati is required for each one of us, the time patterned food intake, which gives us a right metabolism so that our body functions properly and the energy is churned properly with the metabolism inside us. Samaya Bhaddha Paddhati, which is common for all of us, which we have to actually practice for our solar plexus to be more stronger, relatively all the chakras to churn properly. And Parana Nishta to a large extent to be practiced by us. Of course, nowadays Parana Nishta becomes a problem for most of us to practice because the fast pace of life, the way we have our pattern, food pattern, the timing which we have, and all these things are a problem. So Parana Nishta to a large extent is not possible nowadays in spite of the situations, because having only food in one particular selected place becomes very difficult. So Parana Nishta, of course, has been done by the yogic masters in olden days, which is very difficult unless we retire and sit at home. Anyway, Aparana Nishta is something which we could practice. That is why we have both the methodologies of Parana and Aparana. Aparana Nishta is having selected places, different places where we take food in a selected way. That which we could do nowadays because we have a lot of options, and keep not all the hikandari, but some places which are selective and some foods which are selective based on each one's metabolism. Even the sattvic foods, according to one's system and according to one's solar plexus capacity, you could judge and take it. It is not a standard rule that only this particular food is suited for everyone, right? So that is what is Aparana Nishta, Parana Nishta and Aparana Nishta. With the patterned Samaya Bhaddha Paddhati, the system of time patterning your food habits, which gives you a clear metabolism to churn the energies of your chakras, the solar plexus, which in turn churns all the chakras, other chakras, to give you a coordinated effect in your body for the right churning of aura. Now coming to the next slide. Yes, can I have the next slide, please? Yes. The next slide, please. Here we have, you can see the Parakosha chakras depicted properly in the vertebral column, the nerve plexuses, again depicting all the Parakosha chakras from the Mooladhara to the Sahasrara, and from the Sahasrara to the Mooladhara. You can say it either way. And why this slide here has been depicted is the most important thing which we are going to discuss. The next topic is regarding the enhancement and coordination of Parakosha and Sukshma chakras, which is very important to create a aura enhancement, to create a chakra healing, rather a chakra churning of energies in the equilibrated way, each chakra to be in the equilibrated, coordinated way, where we reach what is seen in this slide as the enhancement, where we have the Dehatraya, the three bodies inside us. The three bodies, the Sukshma, Parakosha, and the Apara Chakra. That is the entire body. The three bodies, the physical body, the Sukshma Deha, and the Karana Deha, the Anandamaya. That is the Brahmarandra Chakra. Anyway, coming to how do we enhance and how do we see what is the coordination, how the coordination between the Parakosha and Sukshma Chakras happen. It is very simple, which we had described in the earlier sentences which I mentioned regarding the medical terminology. That is the nerve plexuses versus the endocrine glands. The endocrine glands being in the front portion of your body, where you have the various endocrine glands for each chakra, that is the nerve plexus. The Sahasrara being the pituitary gland, coordinating to that, matching to that. That is Sahasrara being the nerve plexus of the brain, where you have Sahasrara. The corresponding the endocrine gland, which is the Sukshma chakra, is the thyroid pituitary gland. Likewise, we have the Agnya chakra, which has the pineal gland, which is in front of you, in the between the eyebrows, the third eye. And I think this now everyone would be almost aware. Can anyone say and correspond with each of these chakras? Can anyone do that? The Parakosha and Sukshma, can you name it corresponding ones? Starting from the Sahasrara? Yes, can I have anyone? Yes. I don't hear anyone.
Like the top one is Sahasrara. Is that?
Yeah.
And
Yes, go ahead.
Agnya, Manomaya must be Vishuddha, Anahata, Manipura chakra, and Mooladhara.
No, not this particular slide. I was asking about now, for example, Sahasrara corresponding with our body where our pituitary gland is there, the endocrine gland. That is Parakosha and Sukshma chakra. Parakosha is Sahasrara. Sukshma chakra corresponding to Parakosha chakra of Sahasrara is pituitary gland in the brain. Likewise, Agnya, the third eye chakra, where we have the pineal gland, which is the Sukshma chakra, the endocrine gland. Likewise, Vishuddhi, where we have the thyroid and parathyroid glands in our throat area. Likewise, we have Anahatabja, the heart chakra, where we have the endocrine gland, the Sukshma chakra, which is the thymus gland in between the two lungs, which produces the T lymphocytes, the lymphatic system, the immune system of our body. Likewise, we have Manipura, the solar plexus stomach chakra, where we have the endocrine Sukshma chakra, which is the largest endocrine gland in our body, the pancreas. Likewise, we have the Swadhisthana, that is the Swadhisthana chakra, that is the Sukshma chakra, which is there in our body, corresponding to the Swadhisthana, which is the gonads, the reproductive glands for the males and the females, ovaries and the testicles. Then likewise, Mooladhara, where we have the Mooladhara root chakra in us, where we have the adrenal glands corresponding that as the Sukshma chakra, endocrine gland. This is the corresponding ones which I mentioned. And I hope everyone was able to get this, or I have to repeat this again. Should I repeat this? Yes. Yes, ma, should I repeat this or I go ahead?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Made notes.
Anyway, I'll just repeat it fast once more so that everyone is able to note it down, rather recollect. Sahasrara, and that is Parakosha one side, and Sukshma, this both chakras, because we said this two has to coordinate in the body to create the energy. Sahasrara, pituitary gland. Agnya, pineal gland. Vishuddhi, thyroid and parathyroid glands. Anahatabja, thymus gland. Manipura, pancreas. Swadhisthana, gonads, that is the reproductive glands. Mooladhara, adrenal glands. Got it? So now this coordination is done. One side, as I had mentioned, the nerve flow from the Kundalini to the Sahasrara happens. From the Mooladhara, it happens from the spleen to the Sahasrara, the pituitary gland, it happens to the brain. And likewise, opposite reverse osmosis in the body from the endocrine to the Kundalini happens. That is from Sahasrara to the Kundalini, which happens through the hormones, pituitary to the adrenal glands. So these two work in a reverse osmosis way in the human body. And that is how the coordination happens and the churning happens. And the churning happens through the circulation of this the circulation of the fluids, that is the hidden unseen part in the human body, which is seen in a fluid form, because all these fluids of lymphatic fluids and the circulatory blood fluid through which the hormones travel, the endocrine secretions travel. This is how the coordination happens. So basically, reading between lines, the hidden technique is the secretions of the endocrine and the lymphatic fluid is what is coordinating this enhancement. So the right secretions of the endocrine and the nerve flow is what is required to churn the energies inside you. And that is where how to do it is the voluntary form of doing the meditation, which I mentioned earlier. That is the Yoga Nidra to the Prachantojjwala technique, which we have to voluntarily do it now from today, every day. We have been doing it involuntarily. Yes, there are a lot of achievements, but in a disrupted way. We have to now do it in a voluntary way where we reach this exact methodology along with the foods which we take also to be patterned in the right way to take it forward in a nice and strong way of achievement in the aura enhancement. Any questions?
Any tips to do it like the involuntary